If anyone asked which period was the happiest in my college life, I'd answer immediately. Senior year. No need to think. No need to hesitate. Because that was the year I had a boyfriend and a best friend at the same time, and the wonderful thing was they were the same person. After the night, I confessed. Life between me and Zane changed. But at the same time, it didn't change as much as people thought. We still ate breakfast together. Still studied together. Still watched movies on weekends. Still argued about whether Hawaiian pizza was a crime against humanity. The only difference was that now I could hold his hand without needing an excuse. And every time I saw Zane smile, I no longer had to pretend it was just a friend's feeling. A month after we officially started dating, we became the school's unintentionally famous couple. Partly because of that confession night. Partly because Zane's graduation project won a major department award. And partly because Olivia loved posting our photos online. I'm starting to understand why you wanted to fire her, I said when I saw a new post. Zane, sitting beside me, burst out laughing. I never wanted to fire her. You said you did. I was just a little emotional. Sure. And she knows too many secrets. So do I. You're the exception. That time passed by frighteningly fast. Blink once. Graduation season had arrived. Diploma day. The whole campus was flooded with dark blue gowns and square caps. Laughter. Camera shutters. Congratulations echoing everywhere. I stood in the crowd, looking at the library building, looking at the sports field, looking at the familiar paths, suddenly feeling a little wistful. For years. Not long, but enough to change an entire person. Are you about to cry? Zane appeared beside me. I denied it instantly. No. You were just looking at the library like you were breaking up with an ex. I'm feeling nostalgic. That sounds old. I'm 3 months older than you. 3 months still counts. I nudged his shoulder gently. Zane laughed. That smile still made my heart flutter just like the first day. After the ceremony, both families went out to dinner together. It was the first time my parents and Zane's parents met. Strangely, they got close very fast. Especially my mom and Zane's mom. The two of them practically abandoned us to talk to each other. I think your mom likes my mom more than she likes me. I whispered. It's fine. Zane replied. My mom's the same. That evening ended with a lot of laughter. And it also marked the close of one chapter in life. But at the same time, it opened the next one. A chapter neither of us had ever experienced. Life after college. 3 weeks later. The world started showing us that love and reality are two different things. I got a job at a marketing company in Seattle. Meanwhile, Zane got an internship offer at a fashion brand in New York. 2 ends of the country. A distance of more than 4,000 kilometers. When I read the job offer email, I felt both happy and worried. Happy because it was a big opportunity. Worried because I knew what that meant. That night, Zane and I sat on Santa Monica Beach, the place we always went to whenever we needed to think. The sea breeze blew gently. The waves rolled in steadily. But neither of us said anything for a long while. New York. I spoke first. Yeah. That's far. Yeah. This time we both laughed. Because neither of us knew what else to say. I don't want you to miss this opportunity, I said. I don't want you to miss your job either. Zane looked out at the sea. We hate growing up, huh? I hate it. Me too. For the first time since we got together, the future was no longer clear. In college, everything was simple. We were in the same city, the same school. We just had to want to see each other, and we could. But now life was starting to pull each of us in a different direction. I have a question, Zane said. What? If we'd known about this beforehand. Known what? If we'd known we'd fall in love and then have to do long distance. I'd still choose to love you. I answered immediately. No need to think. No need to weigh it. Zane turned to look at me. His eyes softened. Then he smiled. That's why I love you. A month later, I moved to Seattle. Zane moved to New York. And for the first time since the day we met, we were no longer in the same city. The first week was fine. We video called every night, texted constantly, sent photos of food, photos of the office, photos of small things from the day. The second week was fine too. The third week started to get hard. I worked from 8 in the morning until almost 7 at night. Zayn often had to stay at the studio until late at night. There were days when both of us were too tired, only catching a few minutes of each other through the screen before falling asleep. One night, I video called Zayn. No one picked up. 10 minutes later, 20 minutes, an hour, still no response. I started to worry. Almost midnight, the phone finally lit up. It was a call from Zayn. But the moment I saw his face on the screen, my heart sank immediately, because for the first time since we'd been together, Zayn looked completely exhausted. Oh my God! That was the first thing I said when the call connected. Zayn was sitting on the studio floor, back against the wall, hair a mess. The dark circles under his eyes were so obvious there was no hiding them. The shirt he was wearing was even wrinkled. He looked like he'd been working nonstop for days. I'm still handsome. Zayn spoke, his voice hoarse. I sighed. That's what you're worried about right now? No. Then what? I miss you. My heart melted instantly. Annoying. This guy always knew how to keep me from staying mad. What happened? I asked. Zayn lifted his head to look at the ceiling. Maybe I underestimated the fashion industry. Maybe. I thought I was hardworking. You are hardworking. Turns out everyone here is hardworking. I understood what he meant. New York was different from college. Out there, no one cared how outstanding you'd been at school. No one cared what awards you'd won. Once you stepped into the real industry, everyone started over from zero. I'm trying to catch up, Zayn said quietly. I know, but sometimes. He paused. For the first time since we'd been together, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I sat up straight, almost instantly. Don't say that. I know. No. I shook my head. Stop. Zayn fell silent. I continued. Do you remember the first day I modeled for you? Yes. I thought I was going to ruin everything. You didn't ruin it. I know. So, I'm just reminding you that sometimes how we feel doesn't reflect the truth. On the other end of the line, Zayn looked at me, said nothing. You've always been the most talented person I've ever met, I said. Not because your designs are beautiful. Not because of the awards. Not because of the achievements. But because you genuinely love what you do. I still remembered those nights in the design studio, the times when everyone else had already gone home. Only Zayn stayed behind, still meticulously adjusting every small detail, still patiently starting over if he wasn't satisfied. A person like that wouldn't fail just because of a few hard months. A while later, Zayn laughed softly. I hate that you're always right. Me too. Did you just compliment yourself? Yeah. Arrogant. Thank you. That call lasted nearly 3 hours. By the time it ended, we were both laughing more than when it started. But after hanging up, I still felt uneasy. Not because of our feelings for each other, but because of the distance. Love didn't disappear. On the contrary, I think I loved Zayn even more than before. But the distance made everything difficult in ways that were very different. 3 months later, we had our first fight. The cause was incredibly stupid. At least that's what I thought at the time. I had just finished a big project at the company. Wanted to call and tell Zayn the news. But he didn't answer. 1 hour. 2 hours. For hours. Until that night, I opened social media and saw a photo. In the photo, Zayn was attending a fashion event, standing next to a famous male model. Both of them laughing happily. What struck me was that earlier he'd told me he was busy working. Logically, I knew this was nothing major. But emotions aren't that logical. When Zayn called back, I was no longer in a good mood. You okay? He asked. Fine. Doesn't sound fine. I'm fine. The biggest mistake in any argument is exactly the phrase I'm fine. Zayn sighed. Rhett. What? Tell me the truth. And that's when everything exploded. I called you all day, I said. You didn't answer. I was working. But you had time to post a photo. The moment I said it, I already knew I was jealous. And I hated that feeling. On the other side of the screen, Zane froze for a few seconds, then burst out laughing. That made me even angrier. What's so funny?
I'm sorry.
You're still laughing? It's not that. Zane rubbed his face, then turned the camera around. That's when I saw it. The whole studio was still lit up. About 10 or so people were still working in the background. Some had even fallen asleep in their chairs. That photo was taken at noon. Zane said, "It's almost 11 at night now." I started to feel regretful. As for that model, he continued, I don't even remember his name. I laughed despite trying to stay serious. Really? Really? You took a photo with him? I still don't remember. Covered my face, completely losing my momentum. Rhett, Zane called out. Are you jealous?
No.
You're jealous.
No.
You're jealous. I hated that he was right. A moment later, Zane's voice softened. You know the funniest part? What? I've been jealous too. This time it was my turn to be stunned. What? 2 months ago. When? Zane crossed his arms. That coworker at your company. Took me a few seconds to understand. Then I burst out laughing. She's married. I found out afterward. And you were still jealous? Yeah. For some reason, that answer made all my irritation disappear. Because for the first time I realized, we weren't a perfect couple. Not characters out of a romance movie. Not two people who always did everything right. We were just two ordinary guys, trying to hold on to a relationship across opposite ends of the country. And sometimes, that was much harder than we'd imagined. But neither Zane nor I knew that the biggest challenge had yet to come. Because just a few weeks later, a career opportunity appeared. An opportunity that could completely change his future, and could also change ours. That opportunity appeared on a Monday morning. I still remember it clearly, because Zane called me at 13 minutes past 6 in the morning. An extremely unusual thing for him to do. Normal people don't call at 6 in the morning. My boyfriend even less so, because Zane hated waking up early. I immediately jolted up out of bed. All kinds of worst-case scenarios ran through my head. An accident, a hospital, some kind of emergency. But as soon as the call connected, I heard a scream. Reet! I jumped so hard I almost dropped the phone. What is it? I got in. I blinked. Got into what? 3 seconds of silence. Then, I forgot to tell you. Of course you forgot. I applied for a young designer selection program.
I said bolt opreiz.
Wait, a thought crossed my mind. Don't tell me it's... That's exactly the one. My heart immediately started racing. I knew the program Zane was talking about. Not just within the fashion industry. Even people outside the industry knew it. It was an extremely prestigious program. Each year it only selected a handful of young designers across the entire United States. Those selected usually got the chance to work with major brands, expand their network, build their name. Simply put, it was the kind of opportunity that could change an entire career. You really got chosen? I asked. I got chosen, even over the phone. I could still hear the excitement in his voice. And honestly, I was just as happy, because no one deserved it more than Zane. I'm proud of you, I said. On the other end of the line, Zane was quiet for a few seconds. I love it when you say that. I mean it. I know. I smiled. But then, there was something in his voice that caught my attention, like a joy that wasn't quite complete. Is there something else? I asked. This time, Zane didn't answer right away, and that's when I knew. There was a but. There's always a but. The program lasts a year, he said. Okay. In Milan. I froze.
Milan.
Italy. Not New York. Not Seattle. But across the Atlantic. The distance between us, already far, was now even farther. I understand, I said quietly. I haven't decided yet. You're lying. What? I know you. A helpless smile appeared on my lips. If this is the opportunity you've always dreamed of, I'll go. Zayn finished the sentence for me. We were both silent, not out of sadness, but because we both knew the truth. If it were me, I'd go too. If it were Zayn, he'd want me to go too. Loving someone doesn't mean holding them back. Sometimes, loving someone means accepting they're moving forward, even if it breaks your own heart. 3 months later, Zayn boarded a flight to Italy. I saw him off at the airport. Felt strange, like a breakup, but it wasn't a breakup. We still loved each other, still each other's boyfriends, just going to live on 2 different continents. This sounds crazy, I said. We've been crazy from the start. I remember the day you recruited me to model. I remember the day you said yes. I should have refused. You couldn't have. True. We both laughed. Then the silence returned. A boarding announcement echoed over the speakers. It was time. Zayn looked at me. I looked at him. For a long time, as if trying to memorize every detail. I'll come back, he said. I know. I'm serious. I'm serious too. I held his hand. Go. Rhett. Don't miss this chance. Zayn's eyes turned a little red. Honestly, so did mine. But in the end, he nodded, then hugged me tightly. It was the longest hug since we'd been together. When Zayn walked through security, I stayed standing there, watching him go, until I could no longer see that familiar figure. For the first time in many years, I felt lonely, truly lonely, but what I didn't expect was that time apart didn't destroy our love. On the contrary, it made us understand each other's worth more than ever. And then, almost a year later, an unexpected call from Italy changed everything. Almost a year. 352 days. I know the exact number because I'd once counted it. Not in a pitiful way. Just that sometimes, on nights that were too quiet, I'd open the calendar and realize how much I missed Zayn. Milan was beautiful, at least through the photos he sent. The cobblestone streets, the small cafes, the elegant fashion boutiques, the crowded piazzas. Seattle wasn't bad either. My work kept getting more stable. I was promoted to the youngest project manager on the team. I had my own apartment, friends, a life of my own. From the outside, everything looked great. But there were days when I'd open the apartment door, see the empty chair across the dining table, and realize what I was missing. Not success, not money, not stability, but a person who always liked to steal my French fries, a person who constantly left jackets everywhere, a person who could talk about fabric for 40 straight minutes and still make it interesting. In short, it was Zayn. That evening, I'd just gotten off work when my phone rang. The screen showed a familiar name, Zayn. I picked up immediately. Hey! The other end didn't answer right away, just breathing. Then, I miss you. I laughed. Is that a greeting? Yeah. Pretty direct. I've lived in Italy for almost a year. What does that have to do with it? I learned how to be romantic. I doubt it. Zayn laughed. Just hearing that laugh made my long day feel much easier. Rhett. I have news. Good news or bad news? Depends. I sat down on the couch. Whenever Zayn said, depends, things usually weren't simple. Okay. I was offered to stay in Milan. I went quiet, not out of surprise. Honestly, I'd already guessed it. Zayn was doing really well, better than expected. His designs had started appearing in major magazines. A few celebrities had worn outfits he designed. Even I, someone who didn't care much about fashion, kept seeing his name come up. So being asked to stay wasn't hard to understand. Do you want to stay? I asked. This time, took Zayn a while to answer.
No.
The answer came faster than I expected.
No. No.
Why not? On the other end of the line, I heard wind. Maybe he was standing on a balcony. Because there's something more important. My heart started pounding. But I didn't dare guess. Didn't want to fool myself. After all this time, I'd learned to be careful with hope. What do you mean? I want to come home. I smiled. California.
No.
New York.
No.
Then where? Zane took a deep breath. Wherever you are. I closed my eyes. For a few seconds. Speechless. Because sometimes, the simplest words carry the greatest power. I just turned down a huge contract. Zane continued. Are you insane? Maybe. I'm serious. So am I. I sat up straight. Please tell me you didn't make that decision just because of me. This time, Zane's voice turned serious.
No.
I love you. But I'm not giving up my career for you. I just realized I don't want to build a life somewhere I don't actually belong. I let out a breath. That was exactly what I needed to hear. Because if there was one thing I never wanted, it was being the reason Zane had to sacrifice his dream. I'm proud of you, I said. There's that phrase again. I know. I love that phrase. I know. We both laughed. Then Zane added one more thing. Something that left me completely stunned. I already bought the ticket. What? Tomorrow. What? I'll be in Seattle tomorrow. I shot up off the couch. Tomorrow. Yeah. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted to surprise you. This isn't a surprise. Then what is it? This is a heart attack. Zane laughed loudly. That familiar laugh. The laugh I'd missed for nearly a year. That night, I could barely sleep. Partly out of excitement. Partly out of nerves. And partly because I couldn't believe that after almost a year apart. Tomorrow I'd be seeing my boyfriend again. But I had no idea that the reunion would unfold in a way no one could have predicted. I got to the airport almost an hour early. This was completely out of character for me. Normally I'm the type who arrives with just enough time. Not early, not late, but that day was different. I'd already waited almost a year. Another 60 minutes was nothing. Seattle Airport was as crowded as ever. People arriving, people leaving. Announcements echoing constantly over the speakers. I stood by the arrivals area, checking my watch over and over. An older woman walked by and smiled. Waiting for someone special? I laughed. Yeah, I can tell. She continued on her way, leaving me with a smile I couldn't hide. Then the flight landed. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. My heart was pounding faster and faster, until I saw him, in the middle of the crowd. Zane, the familiar black jacket, hair a little longer than before, still just as tall. In that moment, the world seemed to slow down. Sounds like something out of a movie, but I don't know how else to describe it. Because after nearly a year of only seeing each other through a screen, seeing the real person, flesh and blood, felt like something completely different. Zane saw me too. Then he smiled. That familiar smile. I immediately stepped forward. So did he. And the moment the distance closed, we threw our arms around each other, not caring who was around, not caring what anyone thought, just hugging, tightly. I missed you, Zane said quietly. I know. I missed you so much. I know. I missed you incredibly much. Me too. A moment later, Zane stepped back, looked me over from head to toe. You cut your hair. So did you. You got more handsome. I've always been handsome. True. I like that you finally accept reality. I burst out laughing. A year apart seemed to vanish in just a few minutes, as if we'd never been apart at all. I took Zane back to my apartment. The whole way there, he barely stopped talking. About Milan. About work. About ridiculous things that had happened. I just sat and listened, and realized how much I'd missed this feeling. There are people who make a room come alive just by being in it. Zane was that kind of person. When we got to the apartment, he walked in, looked around. This is where you live? Yeah. Pretty nice. I cleaned for 3 hours. Really?
No.
I knew it. We both laughed. Then Zane walked over to the bookshelf, looking at the photos placed there. There were photos of my family, photos of friends, photos from college, and a lot of photos of him. Zane raised an eyebrow. Oh, What? You missed me that much? Narcissist. I count at least 10 photos. 8. You counted them? I live here. Zane laughed, then suddenly went quiet. I noticed it immediately. What's wrong? He looked around the apartment one more time, then looked at me, a very strange look in his eyes. Not sad, not happy, but like he was thinking about something very important. Rhett. I have an idea. Every time Zane said this, my life usually got complicated. I'm starting to worry. Don't. You said the same thing before you dragged me into modeling, and everything turned out fine. I had to walk a runway in front of hundreds of people. Small detail. Not small at all. Just hear me out. I crossed my arms. Fine. Zane took a deep breath, then said, I want to move to Seattle. I froze. What? Not just for a few weeks. Not for a few months either. I want to live here. For a few seconds. I couldn't react at all, because this was too sudden. Even though I'd always hoped that one day the distance would end, I'd never thought it would come this fast. Zane. I've thought about it for a long time. There's a fashion brand here that wants to work with me. I can work remotely with some clients in Europe. I've already figured it all out. I looked at him and realized this idiot had been planning this for a while, for a long time. Are you serious? Very serious. I laughed. Then for some reason my eyes started to sting, because for almost a year, I'd gotten used to missing someone through a phone screen, used to calls at midnight, used to goodnight messages from thousands of kilometers away. And now, that person was standing right in front of me, saying he wanted to build a future together with me. But what surprised me even more was that Zane still hadn't finished telling me his plan.